if the groups really likes doing the sharing the reflections, but perhaps you'd like to sign up to the reflection one day, and you could lead us as a meditation. Yeah.
And then a comment from when I am praying, I feel that often a lot of talk. It's really disturbing, and when we say inside the cottage is to glorify God.
Mhm.
So when people in the middle, when we have our to say cottage, begin to memorialize people, it's as if we would memorialize people instead of God. And I will suggest that people just say very scary. Later when we like that person, right? But sometimes people take 3 minutes thinking about it.
Yeah.
Think it's well, for me, it does.
Yeah, I understand what you mean.
So
I
By number for the states reporting.
Yeah. Yeah.
We say me, and that's it. We don't memorialize it.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Years now. I think that cottage is to glorify God, but when somebody comes in and start memorializing people and people that we don't even know, it for me, it breaks that holiness that I started.
I understand.
Wow.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, I've actually encouraged over the years people to share about their loved ones, because I think that that's a powerful way that we get to know each other, and in the community, and build community, and also hear about the bagels aren't here yet.
With bagel stores.
Oh, okay. And learning about people who've died. Yeah.
For me,
Yeah.
it shouldn't be done when we are praying. That could be done afterwards or before. For me, when before, that's why when I go to Minion, I go a little bit late, because I do my own meditation to get my mind into it.
Yeah, very
And
nice.
to be listening to all that conversation, it doesn't prepare me for that.
I see.
But that's my own thing. But I think that if people want to memorialize somebody, I don't think that, and I want to know, I don't think it's the time when it should be used to memorialize for the people. They can do it before or after, just the name. I go to college almost every day at 4 p.m. and I don't do that.
Yeah.
So it's my opinion. I feel that when I'm in a kind of a flow, praying, that breaks it.
Yeah, I understand. Thanks, Martha.
We walked in the middle,
Oh, yeah.
whatever you were discussing, trying to figure out. But you would tell me hours and.
Yeah. Good morning, friends.
Good morning,
Hi,
Rabbi.
Anita.
Morning, morning.
Hi, Karen.
Good morning again.
Good morning, Frank.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good
Karen,
morning.
I love,
Great. Martha
And
did
good
great.
morning, 516-244-2240.
It's Glenda.
Oh, good morning, Glenda.
Hi, Glenda.
Hi.
Karen, I love your description of archaeology in your garage. That's kind of what I'm doing in my house.
And do we know who Frank is? Frank, are you
Yeah,
there?
yes, I'm here. Let me just turn
Frank
on.
Abrams.
Frank Abrams?
Yes,
It is.
yes, hi.
Hey, Frank.
Good
I
morning.
recognize the deep voice.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. You gotta. Oh, Al is not on. Oh, I got I didn't plug it in. Yeah, no, it's fine. I forgot to plug it in. Yeah, it's in my computer. Yeah.
Olive is joining us today. If you just saw her, here's Olive. She's joining us today.
She's beautiful. Mhm.
There we go.
Arlene is in Oregon.
Yeah.
That state that's over on the west coast.
A little too early, I guess.
Yeah, not Nevada. She's visiting her grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
Oh, nice. We need our prayer books today. So we're gonna-
Gave up on.
No, we're actually getting into it today.
Okay.
Yeah, let's get our prayer books. See, we had to have a philosophical conversation on prayer first. Now we have the philosophical frame and we're ready. Yeah. Morning, Elaine. How are you? I'm good. How's it going?
Thank you.
Actually, I looked at.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for the sweet anniversary card.
You're
It's very
welcome.
kind of you.
I got him planned on mailing it when I said so.
Oh, okay.
You got it after the fact, I said it before.
Well, that was very kind of you. Well, I hope our bagels do arrive.
Morning.
I just wanted to say that this morning, it felt so good to be part of Minion with the prayer book.
Oh, yeah? Yes. Good, very nice. Yeah, that's, if you like to take the prayer book, definitely do that. All right, hi, Gail is linking up.
Oh.
So
Hello.
Rabbi, I think it was you that mentioned this Reform prayer book, the Tefillat HaAdam, and Israeli Reform prayer book. Was it you that mentioned it?
No, I don't
Oh,
think so.
okay. Oh, maybe it was some other thing I attending. Anyway, I just bought it. It's really interesting. Actually, I ordered it a little bit ago. It came from Israel. It's really interesting.
Oh,
So,
that's a prayer book for the Reform movement in Israel?
yes.
Oh, okay, very nice. That's great.
What do they translate the Hebrew into? Hebrew?
Yeah, it's all Hebrew.
It's all done.
Could be Yiddish, what do you think?
It could be Ladino.
Right. Russian, Russian.
Russian,
Russian.
yeah. I guess, Anita, when you flip through the book, it's all Hebrew, right?
Nobody said
You can order it Hebrew.
Yeah.
You can order it all Hebrew or Hebrew and English, either
Oh,
way.
it comes in Hebrew and
Yeah.
English?
Yeah.
They'll be in
Okay,
somewhere.
very nice. All right, well, Boker Tov, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. It's 9:15. Let's start with our blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher
Asher
kishanu
kishanu mitzvotav v'tzivanu
la'asot
asok
b'divrei
b'divrei
Torah.
Torah.
All right. All right, so we are going to turn to our prayer book now. Now that we have the philosophical framework, we've spent a few sessions on that. Now we're going to get into the actual prayer book. So hopefully you all have a copy of the prayer book handy. Remember that if you're participating online and you plan to participate that way, you can always come to the temple and borrow a copy of the prayer book and take it home with you, and that way you'll have it as
as we're learning together. So we're going to
You
be
can also
studying.
buy it.
You can also buy it. That's true. You can get it on the CCAR press. We're using the Mishkan Tefillah for weekdays and festivals for our study. Now, you know, this book comes in 2 volumes. There's weekdays and festivals, and then there's also Shabbat. However, you can buy the book as 1 volume.
Yes, I have that. I did by accident.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. It's actually good because, you know, everything is right there. You don't need to worry about which book that which book you have. The reason they made it in the 2 volume like this is because it's lighter. Each volume is a little bit lighter, but they do have the full one too that has everything in it. But of course, they're different. Mostly they're the same, but they are a little bit different because, as we had talked about before, I think in passing maybe, the liturgy, certain parts of the liturgy change depending on what day it is. So weekday liturgy is different. In the main, it's the same, but there are certain parts that are a little bit different on the weekdays than it is on Shabbat, and than it is on festivals. Okay? Primarily, the place where the liturgy changes on those days is in the Amidah. Okay? Most everything else is the same. But there is, it's the Amidah is a little bit different, and some other things around the margins. All right, so I want to start today by looking at the structure of the prayer service. Now, remember last time we talked about the concept of the liturgy as a script, of a drama, a spiritual drama. And that's a good metaphor because the prayer service is structured in an intentional way, like a script of a play. Okay? It's not just a conglomeration of prayers. Good morning, Vicki and Courtney, good morning. It's not just kind of a conglomeration of things strung together randomly or without any kind of a deliberate structure to it. It is structured, and that's what I want us to see today. Oh, good, thank you, Nancy. The bagels are here.
Thanks, Nancy.
The bagels are here, please.
Come join us.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Please, while I'm talking, go ahead and get your bagels. And I'm going to put something up on the screen to get us started. Okay. So what we have here on the screen is, I learned this in the first year of rabbinic school when they were teaching us about liturgy. My liturgy teacher taught it as a prayer mountain. Okay, that's the metaphor that she used. The script of a drama is another one, but it all points to the same kind of thing, which is that the structure of a service has motion to it. It starts at the bottom, at the base of the mountain, and we move upward. A mountain is a nice metaphor because we're climbing toward God. And there are various kind of peaks or stops along the way to the mountain as we ascend, and then we come back down. So the script has an arc to it, right? Building in intensity toward a climax, and then coming back down. Okay? Yes, Martha.
Isn't it the same thing as the...
Can you project a little louder so
Oh.
people can?
It's very similar to the ladder of Jacob. But what I like in here, for me, is that you start at the bottom, you go to the top, it's like us reaching out to God,
Yeah.
and then reaching God and bring God down to us.
Okay.
That's how
Yeah. Very nice.
I see it.
Very nice. Martha said that she experiences it as us reaching toward God and then bringing God to
Down
us.
to us.
Okay, I like that a lot. Yeah, this is the arc of the prayer service is definitely dialogical in the sense that, remember, as we talked last week, that prayer is an encounter with God and a give and take. It's different from meditation in that way, where meditation stays within the self. Prayer is an outward pouring or reaching toward God, and then of course a reaching of God toward us also. Okay, as Abraham, Josh.
It centers us. Like when we
Center us.
meditate, if we meditate with palms up, is that we are elevating ourselves, but when we are in need of grounding, we put our palms down. And this is what, for me, I can see it, how we can elevate ourselves, but we also need to ground ourselves when we come back.
Yeah, good.
Not being left open.
Good.
But kind of, again, ready to do our earthly chores.
Okay, good, very, very nice. Frank, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question about the mountain having the Torah reading at the top. Now, of course, number one for us, of course, the Torah reading in Hebrew, I don't think is really the summit of our prayer experience, because we're not exactly understanding what we're reading. But even if we're reading the English right along, it's a Torah reading. Why is that, or how is that the summit of our prayer experience? I would think the Amidah would be more meaningful than the Torah reading.
Okay, good. So good question. So I want to walk through the mountain, and we'll address that as we get there. All right. So when you look at the prayer mountain, and I want to invite you to open your books so you can follow along in the structure of the service, so you'll see it. We're going to look at the weekday morning service, okay, which starts on page 24. Yeah, well, 23. Okay, so if you look at page 23, and if you don't have the book at home, I'm sorry, you'll just have to listen. I don't have the copies of this because it's the book, but I'll describe what we see here. So on page 23, it has the header. One thing that's nice about our prayer book is that each section of the prayer service has a big header to it, so you can see where you are. It also has, this book was published in 1999 or 2000, and this was in the, definitely in the internet age, although kind of on the earlier side of it. But the book is structured a little bit, or it's designed a little bit to evoke our experience with a web page. Okay, such that you'll see, if you flip to page 24, you see over on the right side, and then matching it on the left side of the page, you have the menu bar. Do you kind of see that from the and it mirrors a web page. So and the part that's highlighted tells you where you are in the service. So that's a nice feature. Okay, so on 23 it has the header Shacharit L'chol. In Hebrew, Shacharit L'chol is the weekday morning service. We have 3 prayers a day, and this is good vocabulary for you to have. 3 prayer services a day. So the morning service is called Shacharit. Shachar, it means morning. So Shacharit is the morning prayer. What's the next prayer that we do in the day? Mincha. Mincha is the afternoon prayer. And then what's the third one? Mariv. Mariv is the evening prayer. It's also called Arvit. Same thing. Okay, so 3 prayer services in the day. Our prayer book here has all 3 of them, in here. Even though, I think it does, yeah. Even though I would say the afternoon service is probably the least used in a Reform setting. I think it has it in here. To be honest with you, as I'm flipping through it, I'm not entirely sure. Can we find, if someone flip through, see if you can find the afternoon, the weekday afternoon?
So on the contents page,
Yeah, there's a table of contents.
it's prayers for the weekdays. Weekday evening is at page 2, weekday morning is at 23.
Uh-huh.
Below that, it says weekday afternoon, and it says Ashrei prayer 50 at page 52.
Okay.
Chatzi Kaddish 57 and Tefillah at 70.
Okay, all right, good. So it does give us the afternoon prayer, but the afternoon prayer, the Mincha service is the shortest of all of them and really consists of what Lee just said. It starts with Ashrei, which is a psalm. There's a Chatzi Kaddish, and there's the Amidah and Aleinu. That's it. So a Mincha prayer is very short. The Shacharit, morning, and the Mariv, or Arvit, which is evening, are the longer ones. Okay? But so they're all in here. All right, so on 23, the Shacharit is the beginning. It gives us some readings. Then, if you look on 24, 24 has the big heading also. Birchot HaShachar, morning blessings. You see that? Okay. So the morning blessings start with Modeh Ani, the blessing of gratitude for waking up. And if you flip through it, we're gonna dig deeply into the substance of all of them, but for now, just as we're looking at the structure, just flip, you can flip kind of quickly through it. You see there are blessings for putting on the talit and the tefillin. There's Ma Tovu, which we sing, a lot of times at the beginning of a service. There are prayers, psalms of praise for the morning. There's the Nisim B'chol Yom, the blessing for the daily miracles. All of these are under the rubric, or the box here on the first, on the prayer mountain, morning blessings and songs of praise. Okay, on a Friday night service, the corresponding section there is Kabbalat Shabbat. That includes Psalms and Lachadodi. Okay, now this on the prayer mountain, or in the script, this is like the warm-up phase. Okay, you see it's at the base of the mountain. So if we imagine ourselves spiritually starting, on the ground, the Birchot HaShachar, the morning blessings, is about getting yourself grounded, your feet kind of planted on the ground, stretching, getting ready for prayer. And so the liturgy in this section is the warm-up for prayer, getting ready to climb the mountain. Okay? Then we start to climb upward. And the next stop, the next kind of base camp on the mountain, is the Shema and its blessings. So if you flip forward in the prayer book, let's see, you'll get to, you see that the morning blessings is quite long. We don't, when we do a morning service, a morning minyan, or a Shabbat morning, we don't do all of that liturgy typically because it takes a long time, even though our book has more. If we're looking at a traditional Orthodox Siddur, it would have even more. Okay? But there's a lot in here for us to choose from, but typically we don't do all of it because it would take a long time. But if you turn now to page 58, this gets us to the next section, and you see the section header there, right? Shema uvirchoteha. Shema and its blessings. Okay? Now this rubric here is built around the Shema, but it doesn't only include the Shema. There are blessings that surround the Shema. Okay? So the Talmud teaches us, we'll go, when we get back to this, I think we'll look at the Talmud. We don't need to do it now. But the Talmud teaches us that in the morning prayer, Shacharit, there are 2 blessings that come before the Shema and 1 blessing that comes after it. Okay? In between, so there's 2 blessings, then we have the Shema. The Shema is a kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a little amalgamation of biblical passages. Maybe you're aware of that, or maybe you're not. Shema, the Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, that's Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4. Following that, we have Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul. That's chapter 6, verse 5, forward for several verses. There are other passages of the Shema that come after that, which are selected from Deuteronomy chapter 11, Numbers chapter 15. Okay, so the sages who compiled the Siddur selected these verses from the Torah and strung them together for daily liturgical recitation. When we get there, we'll look at what they all consist of and everything. But you have this block of Torah passages that are preceded by 2 blessings, and afterwards there's 1 blessing that's said after. Let's see bonus points. I don't know if you guys are somewhat familiar, at least I think, with the liturgy that comes around the Shema. So first we have the Baruch Hu, which is not one of the 2 blessings that precedes, but the Baruch Hu is the call to prayer. Now that we're warmed up from morning blessings, okay, now we say like Baruch Hu et Adonai Amarach, like let's go praise God. Let's get ready. We're doing this. It's on, right? We're climbing up the mountain. We praise. Then we have that if you flip forward, what's the first blessing in this unit? Courtney?
I just have a comment. It really resonates where I think that if you go to the Shacharit on 23, in the morning before this day's journey begins, I offer thanks before you, God. And God is really the sovereign power. Like He who holds the sword can destroy you or let you through the ascension and to like more light, so to speak, getting closer to Him. Through prayer and
Right, yes, good. So the readings that are put into the book help us center, get our focus and prepare to praise God, and God's going to help lift us as we climb toward God. All right, so just to do it, I want to walk through the structure of the mountain, and we'll go back in detail. But, so the first blessing here is the blessing Yotzer Or, which is the blessing for God for creating the lights and creating the physical world. Page 60. So that you turn to page 60, that's the first blessing. Now you can see, again, you have on the margins, both on the right side, which is the Hebrew, and on the left side is the English, tells you Yotzer. That this is the prayer. This tells you where we are in this rubric. Okay, it starts with Baruch Hu up there at the top, and then Yotzer. So Yotzer, or praising God for creating the lights, the sun and the moon, light and darkness. The physical world is the first blessing of the Shema section in the morning. In the evening, it has a corresponding prayer. We don't say Yotzer Or in the evening. What do we say?
Laila.
No, we thank for the break between light and dark.
Rolling into dark, rolling to light. What is that blessing? It's Ma'ariv Aravim. Okay, thematically it's the same. But Ma'ariva Ravim is the blessing for the evening, God praising God for bringing on the evening. The morning one is praising God for creating the light. Okay, but thematically, both blessings are about praising God as the creator of the physical world. Okay, Vicki?
So, I seem to remember reading something, a book or whatever, that part of the structure of prayer is to start with blessing. No, I'm sorry, with praise. That you're always supposed to start with praise.
Praise.
Is that true?
Yeah, that's right. And so before we recite the Shema, even we praise God as creator of the physical world. And then the next blessing is found on page 62. This is the second one before the Shema. This one is Ahava Rabbah. Okay, Ahava Rabbah, meaning abundant love. Okay, and the theme of this blessing is, we'll see, we'll get when we go through it in detail. God, praises God for showing us abundant love by giving us the Torah and mitzvot. Okay, so the Torah and mitzvot, I think of as the construction of the metaphysical world. Okay, the metaphysical. So not like the spiritual world, the metaphysical. It's not about like it's not about, the physical world is the land, the trees, the sky, the sun, everything to do with the physical. And the Torah is the blueprint of existence. You can't touch it or see it. It's metaphysical, meaning beyond physical, right? So thematically, this section of Shema and its blessings begins with a twin praises. Praising of God as creator of the physical world, and praising God as creator of the metaphysical world. Okay? By the way, this is paralleled. I forgot to point this out, but if you flip backwards in your prayer books to page into the first section, the morning blessings, flip back to 32, page 32. This is in the morning blessings. This is still during the warm-up. And the warm-up section, generally, they're not exclusively, but generally focuses on the individual, preparing for the individual for prayer. On page 32, we have the blessing of Asher Yatzar, praising God for creating the human body. And then if you turn to 34, page 34, you have the next blessing, Elohai Neshama, praising God for creating the soul. Okay? This is a parallel. The human body and the soul is the physical and the metaphysical aspects of the human being. Right? So we start in the morning blessings affirming God's presence in the physical body, and in the metaphysical, the soul. And then when we get to Shema and its blessings, it's the same thing. God, praising God as creator of the physical world and then creator of the metaphysical world. Okay, Vicki.
I feel really stupid, but can you explain to me, I understand what metaphysical means, I understand the soul is, the metaphysical. I don't understand how the Torah is the metaphysical, because to me it seems very tangible. I guess I'm thinking of the scrolls and I'm thinking, so what is the other, I'm missing something. And
so the Torah, when we're speaking about the Torah here, and this kind of goes to Frank's question a little bit also, we'll get more into it, but the Torah here is not referring to the physical scroll. Okay, it's referring to what's contained in the scroll. The Torah is so. Let me think. When's the right time to look at this? we'll go back, I think, and probably look at the text later, but there's a midrash that says, when God created the world, God looked into the Torah, you know, and then created. In other words, the Torah is the blueprint for all of existence in Jewish, you know, theology and thought. One second, Courtney. So the Torah, imagine if the Torah is the blueprint, okay, that the divine architect used to create everything. Imagine, you know, a blueprint kind of draws lines and boxes and shows you like where things are going to go. What is the structure of everything? In the existence, as you know, that we walk around, we can't see those lines, right? But imagine that they're there. It's almost like another kind of dimension where the lines are drawn, and we live within that blueprint. That's metaphysical because it's not something that's perceivable in the physical dimension, but the Torah constructs this metaphysical dimension for us to live in. So when we follow the halacha, meaning like we do mitzvot, we observe, you know, X, Y, and Z, that's how we kind of enact the blueprint, right? The halakha tells us like where to go at this time, what to do at this time, and we're bringing to life that blueprint, making it felt in the world, but it's metaphysical in that way.
But God, I'm sorry, but God, he's referring to the blueprint, but he is the author.
God is,
initially, but
yeah.
he's just like referring to his notes. Why he would need to, I don't know, because.
Yeah. It's true.
Literal.
God is the source of the Torah.
It always has.
God is the source of the Torah, and we've studied. If you've been in Torah study with me on Saturday mornings, we've studied some Kabbalah, you know, Kabbalah, where we've talked about, you know, that God God contracts himself into the letters of the Torah and so forth, so that the Torah is God, you know, yes, God is contained all within the Torah, but the Midrash is also suggesting that when it says that God looks into the Torah to create the world, first of all, it tells us a couple of things. It tells us, one, that the Torah pre-existed all of creation. Okay, so the fancy term for that is primordial Torah. Primordial means before the order of things. Okay, Torah existed before all of that, and that when God looks into it to create the world, that the Torah is the, you know, is the blueprint and like the DNA of all of existence. That's the metaphysical.
Right.
Martha, oh, I'm sorry, Courtney was waiting, and then Martha. Go ahead, Courtney.
I think in keeping with that, you know, it's really symbolic of life. Is the foundation. And I think that the metaphysical comes into prayer because the Torah makes us pray, and that goes outside of the lines. And the feelings that it evokes and the spiritual meaning behind it becomes metaphysical. It becomes even less tangible, where it is not a force, but a spirit.
Okay, very nice. Yeah, and there's a little bit of a paradox there because prayer is a mitzvah, right? So when we perform prayer, we are fulfilling a mitzvah, and that's living within the lines. But then, as you say, Courtney, that prayer also helps us to transcend and touch God. Okay, so we'll get into this much more deeply as we move it, as we do our study of each individual piece of liturgy. But as it works in the boxes here on the mountain, I want us to understand kind of the big picture of what's happening. We're warming ourselves up and kind of experiencing God in the individual self in the physical body and in the soul, and getting in touch with that. Then we're ready, and we climb up to the first base camp, which is the Shema and its blessings, where then we experience God in the bigger picture, the fullness of the world and the physical world and the metaphysical in the Torah. And that sets the stage for us to say the Shema. The Shema is a proclamation of faith, right? Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. And then goes on, you shall love Adonai your God with all your heart and all your soul. How do you do that? By following the mitzvot. Okay? So this section of the prayer service, the Shema and its blessings, serves a theological purpose. And that purpose is the acknowledgement of God's sovereignty in the world and over us, and our responsibility toward God in fulfilling mitzvot. So the fancy term that the sages use to describe this section of liturgy in Hebrew is Kabbalat Ol Malchut Shamayim, which means accepting the yoke of the kingdom of heaven. Okay? Accepting the yoke is what we're doing with the script is we're saying God is the king or the ruler, and I owe responsibility to God for that reason. Okay? And this is necessary in performing in the performative act of the liturgy. This is important because if we don't accept the sovereignty of God and our responsibilities to God, then what comes afterward in the rest of Judaism doesn't really make any sense. Right? Accepting the yoke of the kingdom of heaven is a necessary first step. Martha, you had your hand, and then Courtney. Oh, and I'm sorry, we have a hand online too.
When I hear about the metaphysics, I see it what the Kabbalistic term, as it is above is below, as it is below is above.
Yeah.
And I think what you explaining, I can fit your explanation into that belief.
Okay.
Just like the way God created the Torah, that's the way it was above. So he gives it to us so we can do the same thing below.
Yeah, very nice. That's right. Okay, Shelley's hand online. We'll go Shelley and then to Courtney. Go ahead, Shelley.
I apologize if somebody said this already. I can't really hear the conversation in the room. So I think you can tell right away that this is a Reform prayer book because the compilers put it together so that there are many ways to warm up for prayer, to be in prayer, and to go through the prayer mountain, to ascend and descend. And I'm thinking specifically of the format that on the right-hand side, there's the literal translation. And on the left-hand side, there are a lot of more creative or translations like Life Without Integrity, or like on 61 where we were, there's things from Job and from Isaiah and Zechariah and so on. And even the Shema, it's so beautiful the way it's laid out on 2 pages. So I feel that I've learned so many beautiful interpretive prayers that I did not know about, or for people that the translation doesn't really do anything for them when it's literal. So that's what I've noticed about this. Thank you.
Yeah, that's an important point about the layout of our prayer book. Mishkan Tefillah uses the 2-page layout where on the right side of the page is the traditional liturgy, edited, of course, because that's what Reform Judaism does, and we'll have to talk about liturgical principles for Reform Judaism. But on the right side is the traditional prayer with an English translation of it, and on the left side interpretive poems or readings or other passages that relate to the themes of the traditional prayer on the right side. So this prayer book is designed as a kind of a choose your own adventure prayer book where you could pray from the right side or the left side or a combination of them or whatnot. Okay, so that's what Shelley is referring to, and that's important to know. Courtney, you had a comment, and I wanted to just remind everyone, please project loudly so the friends online can hear.
Yeah, disregard, it's funny, they said poetry, because this reads like poetry, so I get carried away, so.
Oh.
I've spoken enough.
Okay, poetry, yeah. Prayer is poetry generally, but then on the left side are, is the interpretive of pieces regarding the standard liturgy. So functionally what we're doing in the script, Stuart, yeah.
Sometimes we use the word Shabbat, sometimes we say Kabbalah, Shabbat. I was wondering the word Kabbalah, what is that actually mean?
Kabbalah in that context means receiving or welcoming or accepting. So Kabbalat Shabbat is receiving the Sabbath, welcoming the Sabbath. Kabbalat Ol Malchut Shamayim, which I said is accepting the yoke of the kingdom of heaven.
Is that the same from the word Kabbalah?
Yes. And Kabbalah, when we talk about mysticism, it's called that because it's a received tradition. That's where it comes from. All right, so we're starting by warming ourselves up, climbing up, and then Shema and its blessings is about accepting the yoke of the kingdom of heaven, acknowledging the reality of God and our responsibilities toward God. Okay? So that you see in 64 you have the Shema itself, followed by the biblical passages, and then the one blessing that comes after, remember according to the Talmudic structure, in here is on page 70, and this blessing is Emet v'yatziv. It means true and sure, true and kind of strong or founded. And it's a basically everything I just said in the Shema, putting a big punctuation on it. I believe it. I mean it. Right. Okay. So that's what the script is doing. But we have accepted the yoke of the kingdom of heaven. Now that we've done that, we're ready to climb up to the next base camp. And I see Karen S. You have your hand up. Go ahead, Karen.
Thank you, Rabbi. I was very struck by the word yoke and evoking the image of beasts of burden who serve us. And that in serving God, that's our burden, but it turns into a blessing.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, we are servants of God, and we serve God through doing mitzvot, and that's what this section, that's what Shema and its blessings is all about, acknowledging that, affirming that. All right. So now that we, and notice here, Micha Mocha, I'm sorry, in 72 is part of this. It's just part, Micha Mocha is really part of the Emet V'Yatziv prayer, the one that comes after the Shema. A lot of times when we do our services, we skip the Emet V'Yatziv part and just go into Micha Mocha, but it's all part of one thing.
I'm sorry, did you say part of the Shema?
It's part of the section, the Shema and its blessings. But Micha Mocha, this prayer that's on page 70, Emet V'Yatziv, it says, "True and enduring is the is the throne of God, and the mitzvot and everything that I just said in the Shema. I'm just putting emphatic punctuation on it. I believe it. I'm, all good." And Micha Mocha is part of that prayer. But we usually just do Micha Mocha because the prayer is kind of long. You'll notice a theme here, and this is a liturgical principle in Reform Judaism of shortening the prayers. Okay? That's something that in the design of Reform ritual practice, the kind of founders of Reform Judaism set forth, like, we are going to shorten the prayers. Why? Any thoughts? Time. Because it's like, we don't want to sit here forever saying all these prayers. But the prayers, and even, we even do that further, because what's in the book, printed on the page, is already shortened from the traditional liturgy. And then when we have our services, we shorten it even further by, like, not doing some of it, or only doing parts of prayers and whatnot. Okay, so keep that in mind. Just like next time, you feel the urge to, complain to the rabbi and cantor that the services are so long, please note that we're working off an abbreviated liturgy, and we are further abbreviating it. That the standard prayer book from which this was created is already much, much longer. And so this creates a tension. It is certainly true. A lot of us say, like, well, the service should be an hour, and then it should be over, and, like, that's it. If the time, parameter on the calendar is driving the liturgy, then of course you have to make these kinds of liturgical choices. But then there are times, and especially in an environment like Great Neck, where we have people who attend our services, and they will come to us and say, like, how come you didn't do this one? Where was that one? There was no, what happened? There was no, like, how come you only did a part of Lachado D? I mean, so people are, depending on what liturgical setting you're familiar with, our service, that to many of us sitting in the congregation, it feels like it's so long. Why are we saying all these psalms? To other people, say, like, this is like a Cliff Notes version of services. What are you doing? Right? So we have, it's always about finding the balance. Yeah, Lee.
Having grown up in a conservative congregation, and in my youth having friends and periodically going to an Orthodox service, people during those services don't actually sit through the whole service.
Yeah.
Where in general, short of you having a kid who needs to run out and come back in or something, generally we greet each other, we come into the service, we take part in the service, and as opposed to other services where people step out for a half hour and
or come late or whatever.
And, oh, well, I only
Yeah.
want to do this, and
Yeah.
I only want to, listen to the Torah reading on Saturday morning, so I'm not going to come until, oh, there's a bar mitzvah, but I want to be there for the bat mitzvah girls, and, so even though it's a 3-hour service, I don't think that most people actually sit and participate.
Which is you're right, which is why Reform Judaism made the choices that it did liturgically, to say, all right, we know from just experience that, like, the services are really, really long when you do the whole liturgy, and people, like, show up an hour and a half late, or they come in and out, or because people generally don't have the attention span or desire to be in prayer for that long. So Reform Judaism basically kind of come along and said, like, all right, so why do all of that? Better to create something that's shorter, where people will come and the whole time, and we can do, a service. This is also very much intimately related with the idea of decorum and the aesthetic of the Protestant church, okay, which was the major influence on Reform Judaism in its founding, both in Germany and here. Reform, one of the goals of Reform was to, assimilate into the kind of cultural norms of the broader society. What do they do at Protestant churches? Protestant churches have like very high decorum. You know, maybe the services are an hour or whatever. And, you know, like my wife grew up Methodist before she converted to Judaism. She grew up Methodist, and she said, like, in her church, you know, it was like the service was always an hour, and like the norms of community was like it should be so quiet and still that you could hear a pin drop. And if you stood up even to go to the bathroom, like people would give you funny looks. You know, so we in Reformed Judaism adopted the kind of cultural norms of Protestant churches because that was our goal. But the norms of the kind of traditional Jewish shtetl, you know, shtibel, was not that at all. It's mass chaos. And raise your hand if you were here on Saturday morning. Okay, so you were here on Saturday morning. We had a service, a Shabbat service we had people from the Persian community here for, you know, maybe naming. There were more than 200 people, you know, here. And we did a service that was kind of in the style of things that they're used to. And it was like very different from the norm of Beth-El.
There was socializing.
And running all over the place and coming in and out, and the service is kind of going on, but you know, but that's but we have to understand, and so to us that feels like, what's going on here? Like, this is crazy. It's like a zoo in here, but it's all cultural. In the settings that they're used to, and in Sephardic synagogues and in a traditional Orthodox Ashkenazic shul, that's what it is. That's what you do. That's what's expected. Okay, so Howard, you have your...
Yeah, just a couple of little historic footnotes, maybe a little bit humorous, but certainly at the time that my kids became B'nai Mitzvah, and before that, Shabbat morning services started at 10:45, and the B'nai Mitzvah families were explicitly instructed to state on invitations that the service started at 10:30, 15 minutes before it actually started, so that people would be on time. The other little thing, it's not well known, but on the rabbi's lectern, and I don't know whether it's still there, or whether you're aware of it, or whether it works, but on the rabbi's lectern there is a button that Rabbi Davidson would push from time to time when he thought that there was something, that someone was out of order in the congregation. There's a light in the sanctuary lobby that lights up when that button is pushed.
Is there a big sign that says, like, shut up or something?
And that there would be an usher stationed there who would then know to go in and look and see where the misbehavior was taking place, so that the usher could address it. So, and certainly we remember, you know, the slightest sound from a child or a baby was frowned upon. The person was expected to immediately leave. And of course, you know, along with so many other things, we've become a bit more traditional over the years. That idea has
Right. So that's a really important kind of cultural phenomenon to be aware of. You know, when in the classical era of Reformed Judaism, when we, you know, created services that were modeled in the aesthetic of Protestant churches, the main service, you know, was Friday night. Oftentimes, like it started at like 8 o'clock or 8:15, you know, and it was like the big evening. You know, the rabbi would give like an hour-long, you know, sermon, and you know, there's high churchy kinds of things, and the aesthetic is a very quiet. Like if someone makes a sound, you know, then you start getting like, you know, like in getting the evil eye, you know, from people. What's that? If you make a sound, now we have become much less formal over time, but that culture still persists. And I'll just say it here now because we should all be very aware of it. If you ever wonder, why aren't there more children who come to services? Why aren't there more young families who come to services? That's why. Because in the main, and I can speak from this from having been, you know, a parent, they don't feel comfortable. Because when they come into the synagogue and the kids make sounds, that's what kids do. But parents sometimes will bring their kids in, and the kids start making the sounds, and then they start getting, you know, they start getting the evil eye from people and getting reprimanded and feel like they have to leave. That's not welcoming. So we've done that to ourselves. We don't have kids that come to services. That's the culture that we've created. Now, if you go, like what we saw the other day on Saturday, there were like a gazillion children here. And they're running around all over the place. But guess what? One comes with the other. Like that, you're never going to have a service where you have like all those children just sitting there like this. Because kids don't do that. So we have to choose, you know, in our synagogue, like, do we want to be like, you know, prim and proper and super quiet so that you can hear everything and hear a pin drop? Or do we want to have kids? Okay, so I saw Elaine had a hand, and then
just to add to
Courtney
Howard's,
and Anita.
one period over the years I used to go to Temple Israel and Rabbi Waxman, and because he wanted everything to go smoothly, if he heard something that didn't, he would just stop the service. You didn't want to get the evil eye from Rabbi Waxman.
Yeah.
And whatever the situation was, it would stop, and then he would continue on. I mean, I was here Saturday, and as nice it was to see, I don't mind that the kids are running around, but there were kids running around where safety wise. And I just felt like parents were oblivious to their children and where they were. And I think there's got to be some sort of, not to have them sit proper, but at the same time, keep an eye and know where they are within.
Yeah. Okay, so parenting.
There's different levels.
Yeah.
I agree with her.
But just the point,
sense,
right.
You know, like on Saturday, when we have that young little girl that is second grade, for example, she needs to be to the middle, a little, just takes over, and I think she's already second grade, and she is pretty smart. Where somebody, I know people have shared this with me, that is very disturbing, you know, to have her just screaming and screaming. And this is not just me. I know there is a few other people that have made the same comment. For me, it doesn't bother me when little children are crying because I can tune it out.
It needs to be balanced.
It needs to be balanced, and I think on Saturday, that balance is not there.
Yeah. All right, so these are cultural things. It's taken us a little bit away from the prayer mountain, but we'll go with it. We'll get back to the prayer mountain. Courtney, and then Anita.
Just real quick,
Yeah.
one last thing about culture. When a loved one was very sick, I was living in the city, and I actually went and called it church hopping, you know, St. Pat's and all these different ones, like went down to Gramercy, and I found peace there, but also I felt guilt. When I had gone to Sunday service with an old friend of mine, you know, the Catholic Church, I found to be there's much more movement and activity, and people are more transient. And one time I went with a friend up in a place called Millbrook, which is upstate, and it's a Protestant, a Methodist church, like your wife, had been. Yeah. And everyone was like very stoic, very like almost militant. You could hear a pin drop, but then when we congregated outside to a courtyard, everyone was so welcoming. And it was just interesting to see that difference.
Yeah.
You know, it was so clear.
Yeah, it's about culture, you know, cultural expectations, you know, and each community is different. I don't remember how we got on this topic, but I just pointed out because, and we were talking about the shortening of liturgy and all this, because we chose, you know, Reformed Judaism wanted to create a certain kind of environment, you know, for prayer, and one of the ways in which we've done that was by shortening the liturgy and shortening services so that people would, you know, come and it would be orderly and they would come on time and they would leave on time and all that. Yeah, Vicky.
I just wanted to say that I think that Reform Judaism appealed to many of the first generation Jews who were here. You know, even going back to my childhood, because I think there's a desire for any immigrant group or children of particularly it's the secularization, to be apart.
Right.
And to get away from that shtetl. There was almost, I think, a sense of shame. And I wonder if in Germany, you know, I wonder even amongst because it was at one time only Orthodox, if it was quite as, you know, because in Germany, there wasn't, more so than other countries, there was that elite. And I wonder if they were quite so, you know, all over the place.
Well, there's no, it's not a coincidence that Reform Judaism was born in Germany.
Exactly.
Okay?
Yes.
You know, it was born in Germany. The aesthetic of Reform was created in Germany, and the German Protestant, with the influence of the German Protestant church, and, you know, which is, I mean, it's very, like, orderly and, you know, that's German culture. Now, something that's an interesting kind of phenomenon, totally not related to prayer here for the moment, but since you brought it up, so the German Jews came here, the immigration of German Jews, you know, happened in the middle 19th century. They came to America and brought Reform Judaism with them. And the German Jews, you know, kind of climbed, you know, to the higher strata of society, and they were very, you know, Western European and formal and whatnot. Then when the Eastern European Jews started coming in the latter part of the 19th century, you know, from Russia in response to the pogroms and everything, they brought the Eastern European aesthetic with them, which was like the, you know, the chaotic and whatever, and the German Jews like looked down on them. And, you know, and wanted to be separate from them. So the German Jews, like, they established organizations and so forth to help the Eastern European immigrants, but they didn't want to have anything to like do with them. They didn't want to get close to them.
Want to be identified.
They didn't want to be identified with them because the German Jews like were polished and whatever, and the Eastern Europeans they saw as not polished, and they didn't want to be associated. They're like, that's not us. So also part of the formation of American Reform, which was a German phenomenon, you know, what we see now and even today in Reform was really distinguishing our kind of Judaism from the Judaism of the Eastern Europeans, you know, because we want to say like, hey, we're classy, we're like, you know, American and whatever, and those guys over there, like, that's not us. We don't want you Americans to confuse us with them, okay? So all of these sociological factors contribute to what we experience in our prayers. All right, so we're gonna stop here. We'll just continue with the prayer mountain next time, but I love how our conversations veer into different directions and bring up all kinds of interesting stuff. Before we end formally, I just want to introduce Joy Allen from our team. If you don't know Joy is our Director of Engagement and Programming. Most of you probably know her. But Joy, do you want to say anything? You want to introduce yourself?
I think you did a great job at introducing me. So nice to see everyone. I don't think we know each other. Nice to meet you. I think I know everyone else in the room. I think so. Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, so Joy, you know, is her job is all about helping our congregants get involved with different things, if you have great ideas and things you want to create at Temple Beth-El, you know, Joy can help make that happen with you and partner with you. And anyway, I'm glad, Joy, that you're here to meet everyone. We have people on Zoom as well, as you can see. So, all right, everyone, we're going to continue next week, and then we will be off for Thanksgiving, of course, and we'll resume next time. And I'm sorry, Anita, I realized I didn't get to you. Do you want to offer your comment, Anita, as we're wrapping up?
Oh, that's okay. It's late.
Okay, I'm sorry, Anita. We have so many hands, and I'm doing my best to see everyone and get to you, but save your thought maybe for next week. All right, everyone, have a great day and enjoy the rest of your day.
I know your mom.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Today.
Thank you.